Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase. Caroline out today. Chase McKay, Big Joe Dubin, Willy Donick, and Derek Mason all with you here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game on this Thursday. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. We decided that, Caroline's a little under the weather. Let's just merge the two shows and see what happens and have some fun. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, Big Sister is gone, and we get to, rule the roost. The band is here. Who can we be? NSYNC or 95 Degrees? What were they?
95 degrees.
Oh, we could be
right. What was that?
98
Fahrenheit?
98 Degrees. Temptations or, Boys to Men. Did they have 4 people? Yeah, they did. Boys. No, there was 3.
You've hit on like Hall of Famers and then like 15 minutes of fame kind of stuff. And we're somewhere in between, right?
Yeah,
can we at least get our 15 minutes or 20 minutes?
Y'all should see Willy now. What y'all do on the stream, but he does look like the late 1990s band like group with his hat and his vest on.
How many shirts you got on there?
He has like 8 of them.
You got to layer up. We're going like here, and then we're going north. We're going to Detroit.
You have the Boys to Men look. This is what boys.
Really?
They wear the hat and then the suit.
I'm not really sure what the look is. I got to hit the dress code on the plane.
It looks good,
but I'm trying to remain a little casual for the studio, and it's somewhere.
What's the dress code on the Preds plane?
You got to have a coat. You don't have to wear a tie, but you have to wear a sports coat.
Okay, yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
So can you
the players sometimes, if it's a long plane ride, will have like a tracksuit that they wear, but the announcers don't get that. So we got to wear the sport coat.
All right, okay. I mean, you look like you're going to go teach English Lit at MBA.
Right. I got my Denison hat on today because the new swag. Because my son's going to Denison next year. So
nice.
That was the Christmas present. Everybody in the family got Denison stuff. So
and you told
I'm
me
representing.
That Steve Carell went to Denison, right?
Steve Carell was a club goaltender for the club hockey team at Denison. Yeah, and Jennifer Garner, who you see on every other commercial watching the sports, she's a Denison grad.
Okay.
Too. Yeah. So those are the 2 celebrities that always pop up. And then you've got some guy who works as a high executive at Disney who's given a ton of money. So the campus looks great. Thanks to those guys, right?
Nice.
It's like, okay, keep it going.
That is awesome. Very good. So can you still get away with like wearing the polo and just put the sport coat on? Or
I feel like you got to have if you're like Hal Gill or somebody like that or Mace, then you probably could get away with taking some liberties. But I don't feel like I'm that guy. I don't want to be the guy that like, oh man, Willy, you look really. What are you doing? You can't wear a T-shirt in here, something like that. I just don't want to get the attention drawn to me.
Oh, so. Look, I've heard stories of Barry Trotz making.
Oh, Barry Trotz
get off the plane and change.
Yes, yes, that happened. I witnessed that years
Barry
ago.
don't play, huh?
Oh,
a player or
a player? It was a player.
I thought it was a media member.
And
we could probably.
And there were
say
some
who it
others, that definitely you get the look.
Oh yeah,
they're like,
Well, remember the time the Titans?
What are you wearing there? Oh, interesting thing you're wearing today. They might kid you a little bit, like, oh, nice shirt.
Well, remember when the Titans were there?
We have a dress code, right?
The Titans wore that Halloween outfit, and Stillman lost his mind. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
they were going somewhere and they all dressed Halloween, and they got beat. And he's like, "That's why they got beat." I was like, "No, not really.
No, they just wasn't a good team that day."
Derek, what did you wear when you traveled?
I would always, unless we had a long trip like West Coast trip, I would wear a suit. Because we had to, but then it got to a point. Fish just wanted you to wear a sport coat. Like guys had to wear a sport coat. But I chose to, after a while, just put on a suit and do it that way. Because at the home games we didn't have to do all that stuff. Even when I was in Baltimore, it's the same way. Just wear a suit on a plane unless it's a long flight. But guys who wear jeans, but they would wear a sport coat. They wear a polo shirt, but wear a sport coat. But then Harbaugh wasn't, well, let's say Billick wasn't, or Harbaugh, they wasn't as like, you got to wear a suit. They just wanted you to look presentable. Look nice. We're going, it's a business trip. So act accordingly and dress accordingly. Don't come in here with, tattered up clothes, your pants falling off your butt, a sweatsuit on or a hoodie on. No, come and go to work. That's what we're doing. So it wasn't a big thing, at least not for me.
Yeah, different teams have different policies, I would say.
So there we go.
Well, we've started off talking about wardrobe and things like that, so that you never know where things are.
I
gonna
blame
go.
Willie for that.
No, I like
good.
it.
My fault.
I like it. Willie, tough night for the Predators last night. Fall 5-2 to Carolina. The first game after the break, and I feel like the first game. And I know every team has to deal with it, but it always seems like it's a rough one for the Predators when they're coming out of the break. But had some moments, but Carolina gets the best of them.
Yeah, they have for I don't know what the reason is, because we're talking about 3 different coaches that have experienced this. But the Predators have now lost 4 straight games that have been played on that date. And it's unique because December 27th is the day where everybody comes back. The collective bargaining agreement states that nobody can play and nobody can meet or practice December 24th, 25th, and 26th. So no games, no practices, which means that every team has to gather on the 27th for the first time and then play that night. So Carolina has to fly the day of the game, which nobody ever does except for that day. And they were the better team last night. The Predators actually, if you take a look at the analytics and the scoring chances and stuff, the Predators actually had the nod in that, but it just, for whatever reason, it was just bad penalties that they took, undisciplined penalties. So sometimes you get a sloppy game when nobody's played or practiced for 3 days, and that was kind of what happened. But somebody's got to win, and the Predators have now lost 4 straight. There were 2 years where they didn't play the game because the COVID season messed up everything. They didn't start until January 1 year, and then there was remember there was an outbreak of COVID in the middle of the season the following year, and everybody had to shut it down for a while and take a break, and everybody had to get healed up, and they changed the policies. We were coming out of the pandemic. So all that to say, it's been since 2017 since they've won that December 27th game.
So
I don't know why that is.
I guess it's just like anything else. When you like you said, when you take a break, sometimes it's harder. Those in-season breaks, sometimes it's harder to get going that first game. That's why, in the NFL, after a bye week, that game is so critical in your season, because you want to, you've gotten your break, you gotten your rest, but then you want to get back on a bike and start pedaling real fast, because it seems like even though you needed a break, you seem like you feel left behind in a sense because everybody else is still playing, and then you may run up against a team who didn't have a break and they're still ready to go. So, but hockey, everybody had to break.
Yeah, it's the same for everybody. So somebody's got to win.
Yeah, but Willie, why is it? Because each one of their losses, at least the last couple of losses, with the exception of the Stars game, it was 3-2. But these have been lopsided losses. Like, a lot of these losses, within the last 15, 20 games, they've been, they're string off some wins and everything look great. And then they have that one game where the score is just lopsided.
Yeah, hard to say. I can't put my finger on it. Last night, I think the number one thing you circle is they took way too many penalties and put a team that's got a great power play and has been feeling it on the power play in a position to take control of the game. And they did. When you're fighting from behind, you got to take some risks to get back in it. That can happen. But all that said, they still, at the end of the game, or by the middle of the game, had worked their way back into it. It was just like that Vancouver game that we were talking about. They were down by 1 goal in the middle of the game. And then just bad play here, lapse there, and they give up a couple. And like last night, it was 3-2. A lot of momentum on the power play, almost tied it. Then take a penalty, and they give up. The next thing you know, they've given up 2 goals and are down 5-2 at the end of the second period. And these are against really good teams. I do think that if you look, they've lost 3 out of 4. All 4 opponents have been very, very good teams. Carolina, Vancouver, Dallas, Philadelphia has been sort of an overachiever, and that's the team that they beat. But they've played a pretty tough schedule. That first game back, I don't know. I think it's going to have to be how they respond will be the most important thing here, because you got a game under your belt. Now no excuses. You can't say, well, we were off and we were sloppy, things like that. You got to get back on it because the pack is catching up a little bit here. There's a lot of teams in the West that crept up a little bit last night. So it's a lot of teams vying for those wild card spots.
It is. And look, the schedule's only going to get tougher, right? I mean, you get past the first of the year and nearing the All-Star break. I mean, that's when things really ramp up. You obviously have division games, and the schedule gets a lot more compact.
If you take a look at what's coming, February is one of those where you have their All-Star break, get your bye week, so there's a lot of space in there. So I think because they've been playing so many games, I don't think it'll feel as much of a grind once we get into January as it will in, say, March. Because I do think – but the point to your line of questioning there, Chase, that Andrew Burnett said is as the season gets along, the good teams start getting better. They start getting their system tightened up. It gets harder to score. It gets harder to have nights where you just blow out the other team because the other team just doesn't have it together. And so that, I think, is what he's challenged his team with, especially with some of the young players that are starting to find it tough out there. It gets hard to score and do your thing night in and night out in that grind.
So we will see what happens in Detroit. And look, Detroit's going the wrong way. Detroit was a team that I think a lot of people felt like they might be, making the turn and being a team that's going to contend in the East, but they've had a rough time as of late.
Yeah, they have, and that's a city that is starved for hockey success. It's been a long, long time. I mean, Joe, you can remember the days where those early days of the Preds that it was Detroit when they came in.
Oh yeah,
they would take over. They were the team, right? All throughout the league, they had a dynasty going. They had the enormous payroll.
Well, the 04 when the Preds beat them, when the first playoff game here versus Detroit was Bridgestone was unbelievable because it was half Red Wing fans.
Oh man, yeah,
that's changed, thank goodness.
And the Predators beat them in the playoffs years later. It was 2012,
correct.
And then a couple years later, the Red Wings finally missed the playoffs for the first time in 20 years or something like that. It was a long stretch, and since then, they haven't been able to get it together. They've been rebuilding for a long time, and this was supposed to be a year where they would take a jump. They got off to a good start. They signed Patrick Kane, which was supposed to be like that next guy that put you over the top, and they've struggled since then. So you're catching a team at an interesting time. They're 2-8 in their last 10, and they got beat last night by John Hines and the Wild. And the Wild are 11-3 since John Hines took over, and they have crept back into the playoff race.
For those that said Hines wasn't a good coach.
Well, so far he's done a good job with that group. Yeah,
He's doing well because he hates Stillman. That's why.
Could give him the inner drive.
Every game he's
got that inner drive.
The pitcher Stillman in the locker room.
He might. Maybe not in the locker room, but maybe in his office somewhere. Just a little reminder.
Lord.
Well, he throws a dart at it every time he leaves.
Well, so does Kevin Stallings. So does Ken Wisenhunt. So does Mike Vrabel, probably. I mean, it's a growing list.
We love you still, man.
We do indeed. But I mean,
well, I know we're going to talk about Russell Wilson today, and I do remember when Jared was ready to trade 3 first-round picks and Kevin Byard, for Russell Wilson.
Well,
no,
he did say that.
That's why he can't be anyone's GM. Nobody's GM. Nobody. He can talk about it, yes, and he sounds great talking about it in theory, but no, he can't be nobody's GM.
Could you imagine him as a GM? Oh my goodness!
Oh, hell.
His reaction, he would actually go down. Who was the punt returner in Miami that touched the ball? Garros, what his name was, late in the game. Eric Garros.
Eric Garror.
Garror.
Is it Garror?
Yeah.
What am I saying? Garros?
Garros.
Yeah, Garror.
Garror. All right.
I thought you were talking about a soccer player or a kicker.
No, right. Stillman would have gone down and would have, as a GM, and yanked him off the field right then and said, "Get out of here, man," and do all that. That's as a GM.
Oh,
so.
man.
That'd be fun. I'd follow that team though if he was the GM of any professional sports team. I'd follow that team.
So the Predators back in action tomorrow night against Detroit, and then Saturday night against the Washington Capitals as they start a road trip. So Willie, you'll leave around 12:15 today. We'll have Elliot Friedman at noon. Usually he's at 1, but we'll be getting out early because we got a triple header of bowl games coming up on 102.5 The Game. I'm sitting here watching the Fenway Bowl. Nobody has made me watch it. I am watching it voluntarily as Boston College leads SMU 10-7. But we'll have
you know what's crazy? They show like the stadium, the regular camera shot. It looks okay. Then they go to the field camera, and you're like, "There's no way I'd want to be anywhere near that stadium."
Oh,
Well, the weather's awful.
It is.
It looks like
It's
in
100%.
Boston.
It's 100% precipitation, 100% humidity. So it's like watching a game in a sauna.
It's one of those games where the camera can't keep the lens clean. If you look, like there's drops of water, fog, and on the lens. Look at it.
And the announcers are sitting outside like in the stands. It's crazy.
Are they on the monster seats? Are they on top of the green monster?
They didn't show. They should be. Yeah, right?
That's what I would want to do.
Yeah, this is not. I'm sure the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. Gosh.
But
Seriously.
Derek, as you know, there are no bad bowl games.
No, there isn't. There's no bad bowl games. You're getting money for it. I mean, hey.
Right? What was your first bowl game? Independence Bowl? No.
No, it was the Liberty Bowl in
Liberty
Memphis. We played Louisville.
Ugh.
Yes, and you're
Wow,
talking.
so
It was
97
raining.
was like a homecoming.
Yeah,
for
it
you.
was raining, and it was just bad. It was
Cold.
Had never been to Memphis in my life. It was just bad all around. I'm not saying the city of Memphis is bad, but I'm just saying what was that, 1993?
Right.
Yeah, it was just had never been, south for any amount of time, really, only to pass through.
Right. Who's your coach? Was that George Pearls?
Yeah, Perlis was the coach the first year.
Yes.
Yeah, George Perlis was the coach, and man, it was a bowl game, but it didn't feel like a bowl game.
What swag did you get? Do you remember?
I don't know. Back then they wouldn't give you nothing but a lollipop and 50 cents.
Did you go to Graceland?
Did you get a sweatsuit?
Yeah, we got a sweatsuit.
That was when I was at Vanderbilt. We looked forward, like SEC tournament. You get like a nice sweatsuit, tracksuit.
Why aren't you wearing it? Should
Yeah,
wear it all
back
the
then
time.
we got a lot of them, and I would re-gift to my brother, my dad. They're like, "Willie, this is great stuff. Thank you so much." I was like, I got it for free.
Well, they know now, Willie.
Wait, Derek, did you got?
Now I'm like, can I get that back? Can I get that back? That's pretty nice stuff.
Surely you toured Graceland, right? You remember?
I know we did. We took tours, and I'm sure we took tours to Graceland. We went
Saw the Ducks.
to saw the Ducks, absolutely. We went to the hotel. What is it?
Peabody?
Yeah, no. Where Dr. King was assassinated.
The Lorraine Motel.
Lorraine
Oh,
Motel.
yeah.
Lorraine Motel. I was gonna say that, but I'm like, that may not be the wrong name. That may be the wrong name because I'm thinking about Back to the Future, Lorraine.
Yeah.
So I was like, that can't be the right name, but it was.
Oh man.
So, but we did a Bourbon Street, whatever, is it Bourbon Street or Bill Street?
Bill
Street,
Bill
yeah.
Street, yeah. We did all that, but that was, 1993, man. So just imagine, y'all were here in 1993 in Nashville. There wasn't much in Memphis.
You lost
either.
18-7 to Louisville.
Yeah, lost 18. That was my freshman year.
Does Stillman know about that? Does he,
Oh God.
claim to have something
Oh,
to do with
man.
that? Even
Yeah,
though he
probably
was probably
did. He wasn't even
5.
born yet.
Yeah,
What?
he might. Yeah, that's
Hold
right.
on. Then you went to 2 bowl games with Nick Saban as your head coach.
Yes.
How was that?
Because we missed my sophomore year. We didn't go to a bowl game my sophomore year. They ended up firing George Perlis right after that.
Right.
And then we hired Nick Saban, and Nick came in and cleaned. A funny story, and I don't know if this was true or not, but our strength and conditioning coach, he's a great individual, great person. But, man, he was a drill sergeant. He was, if you were like a minute late, you had to run.
Good.
And he was no joke. Coach Manning was no joke, man. But Coach Manning said, I use the bathroom on all 4 of those walls in the weight room. That's my weight room now. And he was just going off. So I don't know if he really did it.
Right.
But he said it, and we believed it. So that's all that mattered.
Saban fire him?
No, Saban hired him.
Oh, hire. Okay.
Yes,
good
that was
Lord.
Saban's hand-picked guy. And he came in and changed the whole weight program for the better. For the better. Yeah.
So that was Saban's first bowl game as a head coach then.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh,
and
in
we went to the
Shreveport.
Independence Bowl, ended up losing that game.
Is that the game you ran the kickoff back for a touchdown?
Yeah.
My
and then
man.
we went to the Sun Bowl the next following year. And I think we ended up losing that game. We played Stanford.
38-0. He
Yeah,
lost that game.
it was-
You
it
didn't want to
wasn't
be
good.
there.
No, nobody wanted to be there. Nobody wanted
So
to
Joe,
be there.
did you said earlier that you predicted like 12 straight Sun Bowls
Yeah,
correctly? Was
Derek
that
answered
one
my.
of them?
You don't want to be the Sun Bowl. I mean, you play the Big Ten. You had a great year.
Uh-huh.
Like, hey, we're going to the Sun Bowl in El Paso. There'll be 8,000 people there. You don't want to be there.
No, I'm getting ready for the draft.
Yeah. So
Now, I'm getting ready for the draft. Why
So
go?
I predicted every year that the Sun Bowl is the one bowl where a lot of teams don't want to go. Like when Miami played there, no, they don't want to be there. Do you think Notre Dame wants to be in the Sun Bowl versus Oregon State? They
No.
don't want to be there. No,
There's nothing to well, back then there was nothing really to do. I mean, we went to Mexico and whatnot, but there was nothing there to do. So I can imagine there may be a few more things, but going to the Sun Bowl as opposed to going, Florida somewhere or California somewhere. I mean, you look at that bowl, and if you're an upperclassman, and you have aspirations of being in the NFL and you're draft eligible, why are you playing? It doesn't make sense
Right.
unless you're like a borderline guy that needs that game.
exactly. So you were on Saban's first 2 losing bowl games. Damn it, Derek.
Yeah,
Should have played harder, man.
I should have. We ran into some good teams. There you go. Who was the coach
Caroline,
at Stanford?
Willie, and Dean.
I'm sorry,
Who?
Chase. Willingham was the coach at Stanford, wasn't he? At the time,
It doesn't say at the time. It just
I think it
says,
was Willingham.
1996. It was Tyrone Willingham. Good
Tyrone
job.
Willingham.
Oh yeah, he was a big name. But remember, he got that Notre Dame job. That was big.
Yes.
That was big.
This walk down memory lane
Yeah.
brought to you by Derek Mason and the Michigan State Spartans, who have a head coach now that
Yes.
hopefully stays around for a while.
I hope so, too.
That would be good. Caroline, Willie, and D-Mase, Chase McKay, Big Joe Dubin with Willie Donick and Derek Mason today. We'll have much more coming up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase, 102.5-106.3 The Game, presented by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 years or older and in Tennessee to bet. Chase McKay, Big Joe Dubin hanging out, along with Willy Donick and Derek Mason. Caroline off today, a bit under the weather. So a lot to talk about around the NFL. You know, I brought this up earlier on our show, guys. I'm just, the Titans are what they are, and I'm so done. Like I don't know what else to say about them. I think it's interesting when we ask the fans, like they're kind of there where they care, if they care. And you know, I think more people are interested in watching some of the young players, especially Will Levis, and it looks like he probably will play this weekend. But I mean, the biggest story in the NFL is Russell Wilson. I'm more interested in that and what's going to happen in Denver now that he's been benched.
You know, I was listening to sort of the fallout of that, and on the surface, making a decision to bench a veteran like that, making the money he makes, that's a big thing. But it really looks like it's going to close the chapter on an unbelievably bad trade. This is now going to be up there with Herschel Walker. Joe, you remember the Herschel Walker trade with the Cowboys that really set the Cowboys up for years.
That's correct.
Right? And I don't know if the Seahawks will be that good, but the Seahawks are still getting benefits. They took the 2 first-round picks, and they've turned them into very good players. It's a cornerback and a tackle. Like, how badly could the Titans use a first-round pick that you turn into a really good tackle and a really good corner? That's what the Seahawks have gotten. You know, they don't have the next quarterback yet, but they also got a couple of second-round picks, right? And they got Noah Fant, and they got Drew Lock, a serviceable backup. So they got a haul, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, Fant and Lock.
Right.
And then the Broncos not only take Russell Wilson, who had 2 years left on his deal, they then doubled down and gave him, a 7-year deal with enormous amounts of money, guaranteed money. So what the speculation is, I was listening to the MMQB podcast on this. Albert Breer was breaking it down, and he said if you want to simplify it as much as you can, they can pay $39 million at the end of this year to get out of it. And that may sound awful, but if they kept him for another year, it would still be like $39 million to get out of it after next year.
Right.
So they're just as well just cutting the losses now. So can you imagine if that's how it ends? Because who's going to trade for that contract? Nobody. I mean, it's going to be a mess. I don't know how they would do that, but
It's a mess on both sides. I mean, if they cut him, they owe him money. I mean,
right.
You know, and then I mean, I'm sure a team would sign him, but still, it's like how much is actually left?
Right. And if you're the next team, you're probably hoping just go ahead and cut him. We'll start over, right? And we'll decide what he's worth, and maybe you get him for a bargain. But the Broncos are going to be out probably somewhere around $39 million.
Whew.
They never got anything really good out of him for 2 years. He's lost his job, and you're out 2 firsts, 2 seconds, Fant and Lock.
Terrible. Yeah. I'm looking at
The Vikings may have gotten a little bit more out of Herschel Walker.
Well, they did.
He wasn't that bad for at least a year or so, right?
I'm looking at worst trades of all in NFL history, and there's nothing comes close. I mean, the Vikings acquire Herschel Walker for 5 players and 8 draft picks. That will never happen again. I mean, that Jimmy Johnson pulled off the trade forever. It's also
5 players and 8 draft picks.
Yeah, crazy.
Man, I knew it was a lot. I don't know if I would have remembered it was that much.
Yeah,
well, and those draft picks led to what? Michael Irvin was Emmett a part
Well,
of that?
no,
or?
Michael Irvin was already on the team.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
Mike was
There,
on the
so
team.
Because they were
Emmett,
really bad when Jimmy Johnson
Yeah.
first took over.
little known fact that the last player involved in that trade, believe it or not, was your former teammate Brad Hopkins.
Oh, wow.
Because the Oilers somehow had a trade with somebody else, who had a trade with somebody else, and that pick all went down, and Brad was the last guy
How about that?
involved in that trade. Crazy.
Also,
Does B-Hop know this? He could that would go around to like trivia contests and
It
say,
might.
"Do you know I was part of a derivative of the
Yep.
Herschel Walker trade?"
exactly. Trickle-down effect, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But many don't know, and I just found this out, that they wanted to trade Michael Irvin to the Raiders, Dallas, and it got nixed. I guess the owner at the time of the Raiders, Al Davis, he for some reason, didn't make the trade. So just think, because they were trying to trade, Michael Irvin first. They couldn't trade Michael Irvin, so they said, "Well, what is our next trade?" Well, the next trade was Herschel Walker, and they got the most from Herschel Walker. Why? Because Minnesota was in desperate need of a player.
They thought they were a guy away from being, and they were pretty good, those Vikings teams, and they thought, well, with Herschel Walker, we got a chance to win the whole thing. And
you were right. Jerry Jones talked Al Davis. Al Davis talked Jerry Jones out of trading Michael Irvin. Mm-hmm. They felt like they could trade Michael Irvin to the Vikings again, another Vikings-like trade, because Kelvin Martin could become the best receiver they've had, and Irvin would bring high draft picks or anything like that Cowboys should use going forward. And then Al Davis called him up and said, "You should not do this. You're making a big mistake."
Wow. Okay, let's tie that into the Broncos situation. Who did the Broncos want before they made the deal for Russell Wilson?
Gosh, who did they want?
Because I'll bring
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, yes, because they brought in Nathaniel Hackett to be the coach.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, let's go get Rodgers. Rodgers made amends. It played one more year with the Packers when it looked like he was trying to get out, like he eventually did. But he stayed with the Packers. So that meant, oh, wow, what do? We got to go make a move for a quarterback, and that's when they went to Wilson.
Yeah, but the stats this year for Wilson really aren't that bad. Now the results are, but I mean, you look at he's over 3,000 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, only 8 picks. He's got a completion percentage of 66.4. So I mean, it definitely was better this year with Sean Payton than it was last year with Nathaniel Hackett. But it just the overall body of work in the last 2 years, it hasn't worked. And
this is why, I'm not all about that, take a hometown discount crap and, you be loyal to the team. And, when everybody was screaming out about Bayer, I'm thinking like, do y'all not understand the world of professional sports, more importantly, the world of NFL? The loyalty is as far as I can throw you. That's the loyalty in this league. So players, protect yourself, because when GMs and owners feel that, hey, we've gotten enough out of you, they're going to move on. They don't have loyalty in regards to that. They want to win games. They may like you as a person. I'm not saying that. They may like you, and after you retire, you can come back and we'll put you in a ring of honor and all that other stuff. But at that present moment, no, we're making business decisions, and you are a part of the business decision that we're going to make. We're going to move away from you. There was no way, to me, that Russell Wilson, if he wasn't your guy, because it seems like he was never Sean Payton's guy, and I can understand why, because coming in as a new coach, when you sort of look at the landscape of things, you see your quarterback, he's on a higher tier than everybody else. And I'm not just talking about him being a leader. I'm talking about the preferential treatment that they supposedly were giving Russell Wilson.
Yes.
And as a head coach, you come in there and say, this shouldn't be this way. Hell, we didn't give it to Drew Brees. What makes you think I want to walk into a situation where Russell Wilson has carte blanche over everything? He supposedly had his own office, had his trainer coming in and all. No.
There was a lot that came with Russell Wilson.
And Sean Payton isn't that type of personality. He was like, no, we didn't do it with Drew Brees. We didn't do it with the great players that we had in New Orleans. Damn sure we're not going to do it here. So he was never a Sean Payton guy. And then the way the season was going last year, this is his first year, right?
Yeah.
Sean Payton. The way it started off, and then they got a 70 burger put on him. That was never his guy. Russell played well throughout the whole season. He did. But when a head coach comes in and you're not his guy, I don't care what you do. You're never going to be his guy. And Sean got a reason to get him out of there. Did y'all see how uncomfortable he was at the press conference? It's like, dude, just shut up, because you're lying about everything you're saying.
That's what's weird about this to me is they went from giving up 70 and being embarrassed to, hey, they might make the playoffs. Like you said, Chase, he hasn't been a disaster, and his stats do look all right. In fact, I saw somebody tweet today. They put Patrick Mahomes' just straight-up stats next to Wilson's, just the traditional stats you see on the back of the football card, right?
Yeah.
Touchdowns, interceptions. There's a lot more that goes into the numbers, right? The analytics and all that stuff, but it's not that different, right? And so for a while, it's like until they lost to the Patriots, a couple recent losses, they looked like they had a chance to get in the playoffs.
Well, they still do have a chance to get in the playoffs. No, seriously.
They're trying to ride, but they think they want to ride Stidham. They think that Stidham gives them a better chance.
No,
that's crazy.
See, and this is the difference between a coach that played and a coach that's just great. He's a great coach, but he hasn't, that part of the game he hasn't been in himself, is that Vrabel, I don't think Vrabel would do this. Vrabel wouldn't do this. There's something in me that said Vrabel would never
Wouldn't
do this.
bench him?
Wouldn't bench him, no. Because of, especially when you're still in a position to win, to get into the playoffs. Sean doesn't care. He's like, listen, we make it, great. We don't, it doesn't matter. I just want to get away from this guy. You're sacrificing your team because of one guy. And I thought this thing was all about team, like we, us. But no, it's about you and trying to clear space, because either way, you got to pay the man. You got to pay him for the remaining season. And I understand you don't want to get him hurt. Yeah. I understand you don't want to get him hurt.
Vrabel's never had a quarterback with a $37 million injury clause that would guarantee him that money.
Well, that's
what this is.
I understand that too. But in this world, you can't ask a player to, hey, go out there and sacrifice your body and think about the team before you think about yourself. You can't ask a player to do that, but then everybody else is watching. All the other players are watching. If you could do that to Russ, I know you didn't like him, and I know he probably was a headache, but if you could do that to Russ, you could do that to any one of us. That's how players think.
All right, let me throw this one in there just for discussion, because I have not watched. I'll be the first to admit, I for some reason, like, I watch a lot of games on Sunday. I haven't watched that many Broncos games, especially recently. But one thing I have heard discussed is that with that injury clause, that he has been less willing to run. He's always been a guy that what makes him great is he extends plays, he moves, he can hit a guy down the field, and it's hard for Sean Payton to match up with that, because Sean Payton has got those. He's used to having Drew Brees, right? Who's the opposite of that? It's the run, the plays, the progression, the play calling. So Russell Wilson's different formula. But I hear that Wilson is not willing to run as much. Maybe the injury clause is in there. I don't know. That seems like it was a factor out there.
Well, if he's not willing to run, which tells me he's trying to take care of himself,
right,
and don't want to get injured. But I understand. Listen, I understand why you did, in a sense, why you did it. But now you can't come up with that lame excuse that you came up with in front of everybody. Oh, we just needed, a spark, and, I can't bench my offensive line. I can't change receivers. Well, if they're doing a bad job, you need to change them. Your quarterback is the one that's doing a better job. But because you got to pay him so much money, it's like, okay, we know the things we have to change, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to change the quarterback. I don't get that, man. Sean, I've lost respect for Sean Payton in regards to that. Because you ask a player to go out there and give 100% of himself, no matter what the cost, to put the team before himself, and then you go and do that with a guy that's playing pretty well. I wish they would have won last week. What would he have done then? Because they're still in the playoff hunt.
We wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Well, didn't they not go to him a few weeks ago and said they're going to do this? I mean, it's been out for a while.
Well, they asked him to take a pay cut, and he chose not to take the pay cut, I think, at the beginning of the year. So this thing was in motion for a while, in regards to them
but they would have
to
never
take less money. And I don't blame Russell. I get you, but I don't blame Russ. I'm not taking a pay cut and then you bench me anyway or cut me anyway after I done took a pay cut, because NFL teams are known to do that as well.
Yeah, the dead cap for next year is $85 million.
Right. So
good for them.
There's some buyout clause. They can get it to $39 million. I think is the exit.
I mean, there's
which still is
that
a lot.
Yeah,
if he doesn't pass his physical in March. which he's owed 37.
That's the 37 million.
Yeah.
He's
I'd be like, man, my back hurt. Seriously, the way y'all did me, I'm like, I go out there and scout team running, throwing. My back. You can't tell me if I'm.
Here's the best
I'm
part in
lying
all
or not.
this. It's not like this contract was something that they inherited from Seattle. They signed him to the contract.
Right.
Yes.
It's their
This was
contract.
their-
it's not.
this was
It's not the
their
inherited
idea.
contract.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's why I'm with you, Derek. Like I don't have sympathy for the Broncos, and look, Sean Payton. I think we've learned over the years that he's a good coach, but there's some shady stuff going on that I mean, obviously we know the whole not Deflategate, but Bountygate that he was involved in, but like Russell wasn't his guy.
Nope. From the get-go.
That's what this is. We'll have more on this. You can weigh in 615-737-1025. That's our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chase McKay, Big Joe Dubin, hanging out with Willy Donick and Derek Mason today. Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, let's talk loan pronto. And they know that here recently, when you follow the mortgage rates, it got pretty high. Nosebleed level, as they like to say. But recently, they want you to know it has come down. So if you got stuck with a high interest rate in 2023, you wouldn't be alone. But now's the time to act. Do the refi now. The zero-cost refi from Loan Pronto, because it's quick, they'll move it fast, and they'll get you down from that nosebleed rate. And they'll do it with zero closing costs and no appraisal. So rates have plummeted to the lowest point in nearly 12 months, and it's time to say goodbye to the bad loan you got stuck with. So they've got APRs with fixed rates in the fives. So don't live with the record high a day longer. You can lock in a lower rate now, and that's going to save you money every month. You want that with virtually no paperwork or cost involved. So call Loan Pronto now. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. They'll give you a free 30-second quote. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval. Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase coming at you at the top of the hour. Some great hockey talk with the bowl schedule, and we're going to be carrying bowl coverage throughout the afternoon. We've got a modified show, so Elliot Friedman's going to join us an hour early at noon. So that's coming up. The very best in hockey talk coming up here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned for that. Now, on the text line, and this happens to be brought to you by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, I have a Browns fan that has been wearing me out, D-Mase, saying, you got to get D-Mase to get Joe Flacco on the show. I need to hear from Joe Flacco, he says. But it is quite the story, right? They've got a win and in situation here, and Joe Flacco was a big reason for it. So the texter, he's been wearing me out for weeks now since Flacco came up, and he goes, the number one story is not Russell Wilson, it's Flacco. The top story in the league is Flacco. So, I mean, D-Mase, is he amazing you like he is everybody in Cleveland and most of the people watching what's going on right now? Did you think he could do this kind of stuff, like 300 yards passing, fourth quarter comebacks, stuff like that? I thought he would be a game manager and stuff like that. And guess who they're playing as they try to clinch the playoff spot? The Jets, who he kind of was there for a long time and never really did anything.
Nah, he didn't. Joe, has played 4 games, has over 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. He still has 7 interceptions. Gosh. But he's what your backup quarterback needs to be, a guy that can come in and win you some ball games. Am I surprised that he's sort of, this is his second act in a sense, maybe even his third act? I'm not surprised. I think he fits. He doesn't have a better skill set, I think, than Deshaun Watson, and not many quarterbacks do. But I think he fits the Cleveland Browns perfectly because of their mentality, the hard hat, lunch pail mentality. Their defense is aggressive, hard-nosed. That's what Joe was used to. A defense like that, a team that's built like we're going to work. There's nothing finesse about us. We're going to work every day. And he still has a strong arm, still can throw the ball through a hurricane. So I'm not too surprised that he's having the level of success that he's having, because he has guys around him that can make plays. Amari Cooper, no one talks about how good and how consistent Amari Cooper has been since he's gotten in the NFL. That was the worst mistake that Dallas made, was getting rid of Amari Cooper, because they could have had CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper on the same team, but they didn't want to continue to pay him the money.
Right.
Get it? So they traded him off to Cleveland.
He had an enormous game last week.
Exactly. This guy has been, to me, he reminds me of a Marvin Harrison, of a Torrey Holt, guys that just do their job, don't say much, and you don't recognize them because they do their job quietly. They're not screaming in the microphone, I want the, football, even though I'm sure he probably said I want the football. But he's not out in the media. He doesn't draw attention to himself. What he does is go out and do his job. And when you just go out and do your job, a lot of times people just overlook you because you're not giving them the sort of the media tidbits that they need, like the talking points. He's not giving them all that. He just want to go out and do his job.
Joe Flacco's first game in Baltimore, he completed 15 of 29 passes. His longest pass, a 15-yard pass play to Derek Mason.
Yes.
Well done.
It's interesting. He went 11-5 that year as a rookie starter. So right away they were doing it, and obviously we know the history with Baltimore. Really good. What's interesting to me is, and Joe, you love like this with me going back in history trying to find comparables. But since he's been in Baltimore, right, he went to Denver for a year and went 2-6 as a starter. 1 year, I don't know if you'd call it an experiment or whatever. He was 34, and then he spent 3 years with the Jets. 3 years, 1-8 as a starter, and now here he is at age 38 doing what he's doing. I mean, do we have a comparable?
No.
For that?
No.
I can't think of too many like that.
What did who was the quarterback of the Steelers that came in? Tommy Maddox? Was it kind of
Okay,
Maddox.
went to the XFL and came back.
Yeah.
That's a good one there. That
about
looked
it,
like he
man.
was done.
right?
Yeah, I mean, you
Maddox
can
came
go,
back and did pretty well.
Well, Doug Flutie, he did
Flutie
it.
went away for years
Yeah,
and
he went
years.
away
in
and
the CFL.
came
That
back.
was very
Yeah,
unique
he
for
came
sure.
back and put up some
That's
good
a good
numbers.
one.
So
I think of some others.
it has
Jim
been
Plunkett
done.
was done for a long time and then
Yeah.
came back and did really well for the Raiders for
did.
a while.
won a
But
Super Bowl.
two.
Yeah, two of them.
Yeah, and Super Bowl MVP in one of them.
So it can be done. I'm not surprised because they have everything. It's not like they're depleted of talent. They have talent. They just need him to get the ball to the
Yeah.
talent, and that's what he's doing.
And I'm sure if you're a Jets fan, you go, what do we got to do, man? Flacco's going over here and he's going to knock us out and he's going to play. We had Flacco for 3 years.
Good for him. They wanted to try other quarterbacks. Well, Darnold was there too. So Darnold.
Oh, the Jets
they
have
had
tried
Darnold.
everybody.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, and by the way, the Browns have tried everybody, and so that's why they're so excited about Flacco. So
They didn't try the lefty from Orlando.
almost everybody,
Exactly.
almost everybody. All right, when we come back, Elliot Friedman's going to join us. Stay tuned for some really good hockey talk next. Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase rolling on. Special holiday time here, so we've got a little merging of shows. Caroline under the weather, down for the count, but not for long. She'll be back very soon, hopefully by tomorrow. Willy Donick, Derek Mason here with you. We've got Joe Dubin here with us as well. Chase McCabe with some suit duties has been in and out of the lineup today, so we're trying to make it for one more hour, and then we will send it to the bowl coverage. But Elliot Friedman, nice enough to join us, shaking up his schedule a little bit to join us about an hour earlier than normal. But, Elliot, hope you had a great holiday here. I know just like everybody around the league, you try to catch your breath for those 3 days. And so hopefully you're back and recharged.
Yes, I have to say, like when I was on last Thursday and I asked if I was coming back this week or on this week, and you guys said you're not sure, 99% of me believe the answer would be no. So I'm actually impressed that you guys are working.
Oh, no question, no question. D-Mase, he's got his nose to the grindstone. He's ready.
Yes.
But so, Elliot, let me throw this at you. We've had some interesting ones. I know I texted you after one of them, but we had another one last night, and sort of the issue is the referee's use of the replay system. There were actually two in the game last night, a loss by the Predators to the Hurricanes, but I had some people reach out to me after the game, and we were a little bit confused even during the broadcast, so what you're able to do. Wes McCauley, maybe the best ref out there, right? Utmost respect, got a great flair. You love it when he's in your building and involved in a game. There's a play where Gus Nyquist scores. I don't know if you saw this play, Elliot, but Gus Nyquist scores a goal, and as he's watching the goal go in, he's not looking, and he gets run into by Andrei Svechnikov, and it knocks him out for a while. He went into the protocol to get checked out. He missed about 10 minutes of the game. And so they saw this. They decided to huddle up as a group and review the play. So you have to call a 5-minute major to review it.
Yes.
And he doesn't say, Wes McCauley, what the penalty is. He says, we have a 5-minute major. We're going to go take a look and review. And then I didn't know at that point if he's able to, it's either 5 or 0, or could he say it's 2?
2. You can say 2.
Well, that was interesting to us. So he didn't say what the penalty was, and I don't know what you would call that. Interference, I guess? But give me your thoughts on maybe how the referees are trying to use the replay system, but how much leeway do they have sometimes? Because it's a slippery slope if you go in and you start looking for one thing and you see something else.
Well, Willie, when you sent me the note about the game last week in Philadelphia, I was actually watching that game when that happened. I happened to be sitting. I was working last Thursday night. We had a regional broadcast, and I was watching that play when it happened. I saw it all unfold, and when they called initially Trennan for a hit to the head,
right?
I was like, that's kind of weird. But I did know that at one time the league was investigating the possibility of if somebody gets hit and their head gets impacted, like they get smashed into the boards and their head gets impacted, should that be a hit to the head? So initially that's what I thought they were thinking, that, okay, well, maybe they must have done this, and I'm just, like, sometimes you miss things, so I was like, maybe they must have done this, and I just wasn't aware of it. That's not the case. They basically, what I think happened in that particular situation in Philadelphia was they made the wrong call, but they felt they had the right idea. Like, ultimately, they're going to say, we want to make the right call. We definitely felt that was boarding, and maybe we didn't get to the proper. Maybe we didn't take the proper route. Like my ways took me the longer direction, but we got to the right spot. So I was working last night. I did not see this specific play. So allow me just to mention, I'm referring to this without seeing the specific play. But my theory is that based on what happened last week in your game in Philadelphia, they said, let's huddle up, let's call the penalty so we can review it, and then we can see exactly what we're dealing with here. Now, the rule used to be, Willie, that if you called a 5-minute major, it had to be a penalty. It could only be a 5 or a 2. And then they started seeing some situations where they were calling high-sticking majors, and they realized that, oh, wait, it was the teammate's own stick, or maybe it was another stick from a teammate lifted the opponent's stick into him. Like, it really wasn't a high stick. They said, why should we have a penalty? Why should we be married to the fact there has to be a penalty if it wasn't a penalty? So they brought it in a couple of years ago, I think it was before last season, that it could go either 5-2 or 0. So I think what you saw last night was these guys saying, okay, we see something here, we don't like the looks of it, but we want to review it. It's basically, for lack of a better term, and if the league hears this, I know I'll get a phone call, a cheat code.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you used the Waze reference. I think our reference was in math class. You get the right answer, but your teacher goes, I'm not really sure about how you got to the answer, but somehow the answer was...
I'm going to dock you a couple of points.
Right, so the answer is 4.
Yeah.
You got that, but you didn't do the right way to use replay.
Yes.
Like in college football, there is a rule called targeting where you can look at a hit to the head like that, and it still isn't perfect, right? And so it's never going to be perfect, but you want the refs to be able to look at things when they get a chance, even if you don't end up liking the end result.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is, especially when it came to Trenton, it was like there was an epidemic of hits from behind.
Right.
And I think that the league would privately admit that if one of those hits, and I'm talking about the one with Florida and Columbus, Nick Cousins and Erica Branson, if that one had been adjudicated differently, then a lot of this wouldn't have happened. So I think the clampdown came, and they were like, just start making these calls and stop this before it gets way out of control. So I think that's kind of what happened there with your call in Philly last week.
We'll talk with Elliot Friedman, 32 Thoughts podcast. You can go check him out. Please do. It's a great listen. Now, Elliot, the Predators, they take a huge loss last night against the Hurricane, 5-2.
Yep.
And it seems like, and I
Yep.
said this to Willie, I said it seems like this team can go on like a 2 or 3 game run, 4 game run, and then all of a sudden it sort of hits this wall. And when they hit the wall, it's like they hit the wall in a bad way. It's not a close game. I know the Stars game was close, but it's typically they're getting blown out. They're getting beat by 2 or 3 goals. And the question that I want to ask you right now, they sit in second position in the wild card. They're right below Arizona. Well, they're tied with the Coyotes in points. Does this team have enough, like, that second tier of talent? Do they have enough to consistently make a run into the playoffs? Because, like I said, they remind me of this wind-up toy where you wind it up, and for 4 or 5 games they're playing hard, and then all of a sudden the car slows down and they just hit a block.
So what you're saying is that team could not play for John Harbaugh, right, Derek? Is that what you're saying?
Probably not. No. But
yeah.
I just
I totally understand where you're coming from, and this is what I always believe, Derek. And it always goes back to this for me. Whenever I start to see what a team is doing, I always look back and say, at the start of the year, what did you think you were? And at certain points in the seasons, what are you? And I think I go back to this year at the beginning. This was a kind of I know the Predators and a lot of fans, they hate the term rebuild, but this was kind of a rebuild year for the Predators. They went out and they got Ryan O'Reilly and they got Luke Shen. They got some really good veterans, but they're trying to build a new way of doing things, new coach, new way to play, get the kids more in the lineup, find out what we've got here. And to be honest, Derek, I think you guys have exceeded expectations. You are better than I thought you were going to be. But I don't like Barry Trotz's job is to be a realist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the realist view is I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying being in the race. I'm enjoying being a little bit better than I thought, but I'm under no illusions of what we really are. And so I think that he looks at it as, let's enjoy it. Let's let our kids play in meaningful games for as long as we can, but they're not going to do anything that doesn't make sense for the long term. Like, I don't see costly short-term moves for the Predators. I think we're playing the long game, and we're going to enjoy this success that we've had this year at a playoff race for as long as we can. I think that's honestly, like, when you lose games like that, Derek, that just says to me, and I think I said this to you last week, if you guys have a bad night, you're not good enough to overcome it. If it's not there, you're going to get pelted. So you better be there a lot more often than not.
So you don't see them potentially being a player once the trade deadline comes?
I think if they're going to be a player, maybe they do something. Like, the only way I think they're going to do anything major is if it's at what they think is an inexpensive price or a player that they have control over. And that I'm talking about adding. Mm-hmm. Like, if somehow the Predators are handing a young player that they think is really good, that they can have team control over for a while, I think you always consider that. But more likely, Derek, I think that, like, it doesn't make sense for them to trade their top draft picks. It doesn't make sense for them to trade their top prospects. They're still growing. I wouldn't do that if I were them. But, could they subtract maybe one of their defensemen or a couple players? Yes, I think that's possible. And if some good young player was gifted to them, sort of like how, Forsberg was all those years ago, I'm sure they're going to consider that.
Boy, if they could get anything close to that, that's a pretty good one, I would say. Elliot, it was an interesting.
That's franchise defining.
Yeah, that was the grand slam that happened at the last minute. Elliot, there was an interesting game last night. Minnesota knocks off Detroit, and of course Nashville is headed to Detroit here very shortly to play the Red Wings. First of all, what do you think has gone on to account for this dip for the Red Wings in your mind? They've lost 8 out of 10, and they were really a great story for a while, but now they're going through some adversity.
Well, they're giving up a lot of goals, Willie. Like, it sounds stupid. Like, it's thanks, Tips. It sounds really, really dumb, but they're giving up a lot of goals. I think Reimer, the goalie, I think he's given up 5 goals in 4 or 5 straight games. So, like, you're not going to win like that in this league. You can't win like that in this league. The guy who's been their best goalie this year, Alex Lyon, and I saw some video of him today taking some shots. He's been out, and at the beginning they just didn't play him, and then once he started playing and went on a bit of a run, he got hurt. So, and I'll say this, like, in the Eastern Conference, there's been 3 teams this year that I think a lot of us got either fooled on or we just aren't very bright, and that's Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit. And they're all really talented young teams that have flopped this year. And the issue there is that, the hardest thing to do in this league is check. Everybody looks great when they've got the puck. What do you look like when you don't have it? How good are you at getting it back? How aggressive are you? Can you check? One of the greatest winners that the sport has ever seen, a guy named Bob Gainey, who played for the Montreal Canadiens. He won Stanley Cups as a player. He won Stanley Cups as a general manager. He always told me, he says, if you cannot check, you cannot win the Stanley Cup. And if you can't defend, you're not going to win. And Detroit has real problems defending, and they have real problems stopping the puck. Like, all the offense in the world is not going to help you if you're like that.
Another classic one that you can take a moment in time and pick any different sport is the coaching change. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and a guy who is labeled like Joe Torre in baseball, this guy's never going to win anything. Why would the Yankees want to take Joe Torre is the manager.
Yep.
And then now he's a Hall of Famer. And I'm not saying this is going to happen with the next one, but I want to ask you about John Hines because he went through that, washing machine, if you will, when the team was struggling here. It's the coach. They just need to change the coach, etc. And his defenders, like me, would say, well, this guy's a good coach. It doesn't mean he can't coach just because a team is struggling. And now he goes to Minnesota, and they're 11-3, and I don't know what the next 20 games are going to look like, but it looks like he's the right guy in the right spot for them.
Well, I think there is something to the coach bounce. I do believe that can happen. I think it's really interesting. Like when I have to watch Minnesota. Like for one thing, Minnesota's goalie, the number one goalie, Gustafsson, he was really struggling, and he's making saves now. So that's one thing. Like the thing about Hines, when he was in some of the places he's been, he was seen as a really rigid guy. And, it's kind of funny because I had some people who disputed that in Nashville because, like Yossi, you can't be too rigid with Yossi. You have to let him be who he is. And now this year, as a matter of fact, what's kind of happened with Yossi is that Andrew Burnett has kind of asked him, okay, Roman, we need you to change a little bit. And Yossi has done that, and I think it's helped both player and team. But I think that one of the things that someone has told me, interestingly, about Hines early on is that he appears, and I have to watch more to see it, is that he's not as rigid as he was in New Jersey or Nashville. And, someone said to me that sometimes what happens in coaching to be successful is you start and you have all these rules, and some of them work and some of them don't. And the question is, do you adapt? And someone who's just watched Minnesota and knows Hines a bit told me he sees a guy who's really learned that lesson. Like Hines has told the story about how he went to some people and said, what do I have to do better? And he heard some really blunt things. And someone has said to me that one of the things that he heard was you have to be willing to bend a little bit more in some of the things that you do. And I'm trying to find more of those answers, but that's one of the things that has been proposed to me.
Good stuff. Elliot, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll chat again next week as we move on to 2024. All the best to you and your family for the new year.
You too, and please excuse our sneezing. And
it's that time of year.
I wish you guys, I wish you guys all the best. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to all the great hockey fans of Nashville.
Awesome, Elliot Friedman joining us. 32 Thoughts, Hockey Night in Canada, and highly recommend the 32 Thoughts podcast. All right, when we come back, Chase McCabe will take over the reins. I'm going to head over to the airport. Predators flying to Detroit. It is the Red Wings tomorrow night, and then back-to-back in Washington, D.C. against the Capitals, a rematch on Saturday night. So, tough test, 2 more games against the East, and that will be it for the calendar year 2023. Stay tuned. You're listening to Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase here on 102.5 The Game.
Happy Thursday to everyone. I know you're enjoying the day just as I am. But, I know you need to do your betting tonight. And if you're going to do it, you need to do it with our partners, Zen Sports. Okay, I've been talking about Zen Sports for the last 2 or 3 months now. And I'm excited to tell you that they're launching their new introductory promotion available to all new customers in Tennessee. It's the No Danger First Wager. When you sign up for a Zen Sports account, you will receive up to $1,000 No Danger First Wager when you place your first bet on Zen Sports. You will Also, you will be reimbursed for the amount of your bet if you lose up to $1,000, people. Plus, Zen Sports has launched a new VIP program for the premier bettors of Tennessee. If you think you might qualify, then listen up, people. The VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, please check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. No other sports book will offer you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support and bigger and better action than Zen Sports. So what are you waiting for? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Remember, Zen Sports, where betting just got better. Gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 years or older and in Tennessee to bet. Chase McKay, Big Joe Dubin, and Derek Mason, our favorite.
We're here till
with
what?
us.
1 o'clock.
Yeah.
1 o'clock.
What's the bowl game?
We got 3 that you just heard me promote there, but we got the Pinstripe Bowl between Rutgers and Miami starting at 1 o'clock.
Is Greg Schiano still coaching Rutgers?
I think so.
Wow. Okay.
Tennessee fans should know that.
Right. Do that. What's after that?
Then we got the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Pop-Tart. Did y'all see the trophy for the Pop-Tart Bowl?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It looks like the Lombardi Trophy with Pop-Tarts in it.
With Pop-Tarts coming out.
Yeah. Who's in that game?
NC State and K-State.
Okay. It's in Orlando.
And then the Alamo Bowl tonight between Arizona and Oklahoma.
That was always a fun bowl game, Alamo Bowl, because it was late at night and it was just chaos that went on. I want to ask Mr. Mason about something. We talked about Joe Flacco, and you caught the long pass from him. It said in that game, Troy Polamalu had an interception. What was it like going against Troy Polamalu, who was one of the best safeties of all time?
That's a good question.
It was like going against Ed Reed, but maybe not. I think Ed, at least in my opinion, I think Ed is the best safety to ever play the game. Now,
Well, you saw him every day in practice.
Yeah, I saw him every day. But not only that, to me, he was a underrated athlete. Ed was. He can play. If you needed him to play wide receiver, he can play wide receiver. He can return punts, kickoffs. Right. He can do everything you asked him to do because he was just and I think that's what made him so good, that he was so versatile. Troy was a risk taker, but it was calculated risk. And everybody knew on Pittsburgh team when Troy was going to take that risk because you had to back him up. You had to be behind him. And if he took a risk,
right, you
had to make sure you had to cover his tail when he took that risk. But he was a big hitter. And he was a hell of a player, but he was just extremely smart in what he was doing. But they had a lot of really, everybody knew their role on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Right.
And he was the captain. It seemed like he was the captain of the defense, but he wasn't the engine of the defense. I think the linebackers, they were the engine of the defense. He was just sort of like the conductor.
Ooh.
He was that guy.
Yeah.
He was there wasn't much it just seemed like he was always in the right place at the right time. That's what it was about Troy. And that game in particular, it was the AFC Championship. It's the divisional round because they went on. No, that was the AFC Championship game.
2008.
Because they went on and beat Arizona.
Yep.
That year. That interception he had, I think it was right after halftime. He returned it for a touchdown, if I can recall. It was either the last score or right before that. That basically sealed the game for them because we had to get into a hurry-up offense, and that's when Ryan Clark hit Willis McGahee and knocked him out of the game and damn near and knocked himself out as well. Wow. It was a huge hit down the middle of the field. And, but that team, they were hell to play against. And,
I'm sure.
And one of the reasons was because Troy, you always had to find where he was. Because he would always be in different spaces or different spots on that defense.
What about Charles Woodson?
I think Charles was I always got
your
the better.
battle with him.
I always got the better of Charles. Always.
My man.
Even in college, I always got the better of Charles. I don't know why.
Even in college.
But I got the best of him, the better of him each time we played.
Nice.
I didn't see him. I saw him as a tremendous athlete. I didn't see him as a tremendous corner. I felt I went up against better corners from a technical standpoint. He wasn't. If people ever ask me, well, who's the best corner you went up against? It wouldn't be Charles Woodson.
Who is it?
Who's the best DB? It can be a corner or a safety.
Ty Law. Ty Law was the best corner that I went against. Why? Because Ty was so technically sound. He and I were right around the same size. He had great feet, great instinct, He was strong, physical. And back then, you got to understand, they allowed corners to grab you and do all this other stuff. But not only that, he had good feet. It was never like he was off balance. Do y'all remember when we went down to New England? I think it might have been 98, 99, somewhere around 2000. Where
you went up there?
Yeah, we went up there and he caught, it was early, it might have been 98. We went there and we threw an out route.
Well, what logo was on your helmet?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
I remember you guys got beat. Eddie almost scored a touchdown or something. I remember that game.
He intercepted it out. He read it perfectly and scored a touchdown. It was a pick six, I think, for like 60, 70 yards, somewhere around there. He was just so technically sound back then that he was a hard matchup for big receivers as well as for smaller receivers. That's why I look at Darrelle Revis, because Darrelle Revis is sort of like a derivative of Ty Law. They were cousins, so I can understand why they both played the exact same way. That's why, to me, he's one of the top corners as well, Darrelle Revis. And I caught him, Darrelle, at his early stage. I didn't get a chance to play him as much. I think we played him his rookie year, played him once or twice after that, but then I ended up being on the Jets team. But I never really had a true battle with Darrelle Revis because I was at the tail end of my career,
right,
and he was just starting his.
Let me ask you this. What was it like watching Tom Brady? I mean, I know y'all battled quite a bit, but to see him go down the field and all that, I mean, you had a front row with Brady.
Yeah, but you didn't think of Brady as Brady. Like, you didn't think of him as, like, what he ultimately ended up being.
Right.
You knew that they were a well-coached team. They were not going to make many mistakes. And they had a hell of a defense. Their defense was really, really good. And from an offensive standpoint, they just dinked and dunked you to death. They ran the ball effectively. They always kept you off balance. But we didn't look at Tom as the Tom he ended up ultimately being. We knew he was a damn good quarterback, but nobody was talking Tom is the greatest quarterback of all time back then. They were not. It was that team. They had the best team. When you're talking about offense, defense, special, they had the best team in the National Football League.
And I'm looking here when you guys went the 2009 team, you got beat by the Colts again, right, in the playoffs? What's going on here?
Yeah, Coach, we couldn't get over that hump with the Colts, man. We couldn't do it. We got over it once.
But that's what I'm looking for. You guys beat Brady in the 2009, the wild card round.
Oh yeah, we put a spanking on. I think we ended up beating them 40-something to 7, 14, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 33-14.
Yeah, at one point it was 30-something to nothing. 33-0 or 28, because we got on them so fast and we took them out of what they could do from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, you guys are up 24-0 in the first quarter.
Yeah. So and it wasn't because Ray Rice ran crazy that day.
That's great.
Oh my goodness, he was a madman that day in regards to him running the football. We just had their number for whatever reason. We always played New England tough.
Right. Yeah.
Even the. And I like talking about stories like this. Even the year they went 17-0, 16-0 in the regular season, we, the Giants and us, were the two teams that should have beaten them in the regular season, because they played the Giants at the end of the season, and that game was close. We played them, and I think they had maybe 3 or 4 games left, and it took. The crazy part about it is that 4th and inches at our 40 or at midfield, 4th and inches. They call a quarterback sneak. Didn't get it. We win the game. Didn't get it. But Rex Ryan calls a timeout. Rex Ryan calls a timeout. And it negates our stop.
Oof.
And then they go down and score. Bart Scott gets upset. He grabs the ref penalty.
Is that when he chucked the flag?
Yeah, he chucked the flag. They tackle on 15 yards, and it's just mayhem because we're all like, it was like they were. It was like they gave the game to the Patriots. Not only did we have Rex Ryan calling a timeout, right before, and I understand why he called it. He felt they were not in the best defense. So he calls a timeout, but we end up stopping them on 4th and 1. So that negates the stop. Then they have another play. Then it gets pass interference. Bart gets go crazy. He upset. He grabs the flag, chucks it. They tack on another 15 yards. And we end up losing again. They throw a pass like toward the end. And one of their, but that's not even a kicker. We get the ball back. We're driving. Joe Flacco throws a Hail Mary. Mark Clayton catches it at the 1 yard line.
That's right.
And tried to get it in, and we couldn't get it in. Game's over.
Kyle Bowler.
Yeah, Kyle Bowler, not Joe Flacco. Kyle Bowler.
Yeah, you scored the first touchdown of that game.
Oh, I was killing them. I was killing New England.
Bowler was the starter?
Yeah, Kyle Bowler was the
2007.
starter. Yeah, Kyle Bowler was the
So that
starter.
was before Steve? Or after
No,
Steve?
that was Steve got there in 2005. Steve was hurt. Steve
right.
got hurt.
That's right.
So Bowler had to start, and Bowler played a good game. Played a really good game. But
So wait, you were in that game when Bart Scott chucked the flag into the stands.
When he chucked the flag, he got mad and that tacked on another 15 yards.
So I was on
man.
I was watching that game. I was in Murfreesboro, and I was on the phone with my dad. And there was a little bit of a delay between both our TVs, and so he was ahead of me, and I hear him go, "What the bleep just was that?" And I go, "What?" And I'm waiting for it, and I see him pick that flag up and chuck it. And I'm like, I say the same thing to him. Like, I'd never seen that before.
Nah, I mean, and I get it. The emotions were high. They were coming in an undefeated team, and we had a shot to beat them on Monday night. That year we didn't. I don't think we went to the playoffs that year too. I think that was one of the years we did miss the playoffs. But we always seemed to play New England tough, and we had it in our hands. And because of the timeout and then the penalty, it just wiped everything away.
However, defensive coordinator Rex Ryan called a timeout right before the play, giving the Falcons another chance for Brady. He did the quarterback sneak to get the first down. And then the last play of the game, Bowler's Hail Mary pass to Mark. Where were you? Why didn't you catch a damn ball?
I was on the other side running a go. They had two over here and one over here, which I was a single guy, and I ended up running to the spot. So it was like, okay, if you knock it down, I'm right in front of the ball. Somebody else is behind the ball. But Mark ends up catching it.
Why don't you just flip it back?
They had him wrapped up.
Oh,
when he caught it, they had him wrapped up, and it was a yard away, a damn yard once again.
And that's you guys are leading them into
1
the
yard
fourth
short.
quarter.
Haunt
your career, doesn't it?
Exactly, 1 yard short. So basically, I was 2 yards.
Wow.
If you add them both up. So but those we had a shot to beat them, and we didn't. But I always seem to have good outings against New England for whatever reason. So, but that was a good game. That was.
Okay, real quick. As a fan watching Brady, there were moments where I was just in awe of him. That some of the things that he did. Did you ever? You were never going to admit it at the time, but did you ever have those moments when you were standing on the sideline watching him, or did Ed or any of the defenders kind of tell you that there's just stuff that he does that was special, or was that just kind of the fans' point of view?
I think it was more so the fans' point of view. There were only two people that, I was in awe of. Well, three in awe of. One was Jerry Rice. When I first, Jerry Rice, I'm like, oh my goodness, Jerry Rice. So I was in awe of that. And then it was Calvin Johnson. I was just, and you got to remember, I'm in my career now, and I'm doing great. We play the Lions, and, I'm in Baltimore at the time, and I was in awe of him because you never know when you're seeing a guy from the outside in on television, you're like, okay, this guy's great. He's doing some things. But then when you actually see him in person, this guy seemed like he was all of 6'6". See, but he wasn't just like a basketball sling. He was a big guy. And I'm just looking at him. He's towering over everybody. The quarterback, some of the linemen, definitely the other receivers and running backs. But he looked like a man amongst boys. And the play that just sent me over the edge was we put three guys, no lie. We had 3 guys on Calvin Johnson. This why, to me, besides Jerry Rice, Calvin Johnson is the best receiver to ever play in the National Football League. And there will never be another guy like him. 3 guys tried to guard him, and he still caught the ball. Jumped over everybody, caught the ball. I said, man, this is unfair. This is truly unfair. And the last person I was in awe of is Peyton Manning. Tom was great, and I will give that to him. But if you're asking me who the GOAT is, Peyton will always be the GOAT to me. It's because of what I actually, like with Tom, I went and sat down, and it's not because of any disrespect to Tom or anything, but I went and sat down and I had to, get the offense and what we were doing. So I never really paid attention to what New England was doing on the field. But when Peyton was quarterbacking, it was must watch. You had to be on the sideline watching this cat play because everything he did, he was methodical and everything. He knew I think he even knew what some of the players were doing on the sideline. He knew everything that was going on the field. And I was just at awe in that. Like, how can this guy be this good? But he was. So to me, and then, from a personal standpoint, when I retired, he ended up sending me a letter just congratulating me on my career and everything else, handwritten letter. So that means a lot to me. So Peyton, besides Steve, Peyton is the one guy that I just enjoyed watching. And I ended up catching a pass from him in the Pro Bowl, which was great. It ended up being like a 70-something yard pass.
Nice.
And that was like, oh man, I caught a pass from Peyton Manning. It's like that's one of those things you just, as a player, you want to do. Yeah, my quarterback is great, I know that, but catching it from another quarterback like that, I mean, come on.
Real quick, when did you wear number 82?
When?
Yeah,
my first year
here.
Yeah,
you wore 82 at Michigan State.
No, I wasn't 82 at Michigan State. I was 80 at Michigan
you were
State.
80.
Damn it, Chase, let Derek answer.
Yeah, I got 80 because 2 people that I tried to model my game after. Obviously, Jerry Rice, just love watching him. But Andre Rison, I loved Andre Rison, man.
Yeah.
Like that was I watched film of him in college at practice. Watching what he did at practice, I cut my jersey like Dre Rison because he had his cut in practice. I wanted to emulate because I saw his playing style was closer to my playing style. So I wanted to emulate my game after his.
So if I say this, does this mean anything to you? Hey, turn the TV on. She damn burned the house down.
Yep.
If you know, you know.
Absolutely.
All right, we gotta get to the break real quick. Ali Milanicki from Zen Sports going to give us some picks for tonight. We will do that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase chasing Big Joe in today with Derek. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Carolina. Thursday. It's time to get some picks for tonight, Thursday Night Football, a riveting matchup. The Jets and the Browns. The Browns obviously have some things to play for. We bring in Allie Milnicki from Zen Sports to give us her picks for tonight. Allie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. What do you think about this one tonight, the final Thursday night game of the year?
Well, finally it's here, right? I like the Browns in this one. Joe Flacco seems to really have developed good chemistry with, especially Amari Cooper, who is questionable for this game. But I really like how Flacco has come in. He seems to be in playoff mode. The Jets, meanwhile, their season, I don't know how much worse it can get. I don't know if it's going to be Zach Wilson or Trevor Siemian we're going to see tonight. But either way, I just don't see how they're going to score that many points against this potent Browns offense. So I'm going to go with the Browns here.
Derek Mason is familiar with Joe Flacco a little bit.
Now, Allie, looking at this Cowboys and Lions game, obviously the Cowboys are coming off a loss last week. They are favored in this game. Would you take the Lions in a point?
I actually like the Cowboys in this game to bounce back. They are at home. We know how potent the Cowboys are at home. I love the Lions to death. They were one of my preseason picks to go far into the playoffs. I still think they do, but I think this is a rough matchup for them. I think that Jared Goff can be overwhelmed at times, so I'm going to side with Dallas here.
Now, Patriots and Bills. This is a huge line for the Bills. They are minus 13 in this game, somewhere around there. Would you take the Patriots in the points, considering what New England was able to do last week?
No, in fact, I'm going to go the opposite way, and I don't like laying double-digit points, but I think that the Bills, they have it right in their heads what the Patriots did to them a few weeks ago or a month or two ago. Mac Jones isn't the quarterback anymore, but I still think that there's a revenge factor. I wasn't surprised that the Bills didn't cover against the Chargers last week. They were coming off a big emotional win, so I think they bounce back this week, and I think they win comfortably.
Well, certainly going to be a fun weekend. Allie, sorry we got to go a little quick today, but we're out of time, and they will talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today with Zen Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 years or older and in Tennessee to bet. That will do it for us. Coming up next, another bowl game, the Pinstripe Bowl between Rutgers and Miami. Jared back tomorrow. Caroline hopefully back tomorrow. 102.5, 106.3 the game.
Be love and love on your people. Peace.